Okay, welcome everyone. It's great to be back here on terra firma in our flagship home base at the Yisrael Beis Zev of Fairways Lakewood, and they say it's a nice place to visit, but I'm happy to be home. That Gemara is not there, so don't look for it. There's new Gemaras in the front. New Gemaras. We are dedicated by A.B. Spry as in the front over there. No, in the front. They're on the front table. You see it? As Eddie Chazan just said, the Chayolim are ferociously fighting at this time of the wee hours of the morning, and they are in the most dangerous of situations, going to places that are booby-trapped, snipers hiding behind men, women, and children. It's just unimaginable what we're dealing with, so our learning should be a schus. They should be safe, they should be victorious, and we have in mind especially for A.B.'s son, this is Zev Ben Yuta. We're dedicated by Irving Fishbaum for his Gesund, Isser Ben Rezel, Shimon Klein, Lillian Nishmas, his parents, Asher Anshel Ben Yehuda, and Gittel Bas Shimon Pinchas. The Neshama should have an aliyah. We welcome in Rebel Yafi, who is going to be working on bodybuilding so he could make it across the street to join us. Stephen Holtzman, Baruch Ian, Dr. Block, Aaron Swade, Yitzi Padower, I think that's, not sure who that is, A.B. Spry, Eddie Chazan, Shimon Klein, Mark Frankel, Shimon Deer, Michal, Nachman Chapler, Irving Fishbaum, Menachem Yemansky, Marshall Castle, Moshe Lehman, Yitzi Muller, Pesach Siegelman, Abe Arbach, Shelley Zeitlin, Saba, Rich Leonard, Reb Kramer, Berish Gesserman, Gedalia Engel, Reb Krause. It's great to have all of you here. I just want to point out also we have Nathan Goldman joining us from Stuttgart, Germany, Harrison Kletzel. I want to point out that we will be trying to make a 7:45, and we're going to have to, count mi b'mia holchem, because we won't be able to start the daf until we have 10 people. So, but the idea is that there are people that need that minyan, like Gedalia can't come early now, he's working. And it's also nice, whenever we can, to daven bizman, to daven that we don't have to say over Kriya Shema, so we'll see. I'll be going around and soliciting help. Gedalia, could you help me with this a little bit? Yeah. To try to get people, let's try to make a list. And of course, by then already, I have a feeling that Rebellia will he'll get a better pair of sneakers so that he should be able to come. Sandy Grunfeld is joining us. Baruchian is here. Okay, so yesterday we'll stop at the very top line of Daf Daled Amud Aleph. So we said V'loi roi hashem she'ein kavanas lahazik, and if it only said shein, the damage when an animal eats, where it doesn't have intent to damage, then Kuraya Karen, then we wouldn't know the hezek of goring, shekavanas lahazik, who does have an intent to damage. So the Gemara says that doesn't make sense at all. V'lav kal v'chaymer, isn't it a kal v'chaymer? Isn't it a for sure? Or ma'ashein, if you're chayiv when your animal eats, she'en kavanas lahazik, where there's no intent to damage, and therefore there's less reason that you might be liable to protect from it. Chayiv, keren shekavanas lahazik, goring, where there's intent to damage, and that's something you should have, foresaw. like kol shechen, you should surely be chayiv. So the Gemara says, well, it's true. So I might think midei dahave a eved va'ama. Now this is an interesting halacha, which most people don't know. And that is that if your servant or maidservant, if you have a servant or a maidservant, and that servant or maidservant goes out and damages, the master is not liable. That's a big chiddush. But that's not halacha. If my Eved Kanani, or let's be more real, Marshall's Eved Kanani, goes out and damages. So I would have said Marshall should be chayiv. Watch your Eved Kanani. The din is Marshall is potter. That's the din. Now, and over there it was kavanas lahazik. Lav afagav the kavanas lahazik. The Eved tried to, through premeditation, damage someone. Afilu achi patire. Marshall's potter. Hachanami, I might say also over here with the damage of Keren, when the animal gores, maybe loishna, maybe the owner is potter. So Rav Ashi says, you're mixing apples and oranges. There's a special reason why Marshall is potter when his Eved Kanani goes out and damage. It was, those days people had slaves. It was a safety mechanism. Because if the owner would be liable if his slave goes out and damages, then slaves would have a real way to get back at their masters. Says the Gemara, let's see it inside. Rav Ashi, Otu Ebed v'Amalav Taima Rabba Ispo, by a servant and a maidservant. Isn't there a major reason why we say that the owner is exempt? Because if not, then the slaves and the maidservants would be able to hold a very big power over their masters. Maybe the master will annoy the Eved, and he'll go and burn down the neighbor's silo. And slaves will be mechayiv their masters 100 mana every day. Therefore, we say the master is not chayiv, thereby causing that the slave doesn't have a reason to do it. Rather, you have to read it as follows. Somebody is not muted. Now they are. Okay.
Robert, what's the word parach?
Parach over here means that you should give a reason why the pasuk is necessary. Rather, you have to pose the Talmudic argument. That's the way to translate it. If the Torah only said Keren, goring, which has intent to damage, then I wouldn't know eating where there's no intent to damage. And if it only said shein, there that there's benefit. And therefore, since there's benefit, it's very likely that the animal is going to engage in such activity. Karen, like goring, he doesn't get any personal benefit out of it. So says the Gemara, okay, but now we have a different mystery. And that mystery is, as we welcome in Avram Shankman, here again is another candidate. Avram, I just want to let you know that starting next Monday, we are really going to valiantly try to have a 7:45 Mariv, so that people who can't get here earlier will have a Mariv. And Shimon, that's important for you to try to do also if you can. We could use you for the 7:45 Mariv. I mean, I know, Shimon, that you live a little closer than Rebellia. Where you're about 20 minutes away, 15 minutes away. Okay, so we could use you And we're really gonna be trying to get about 14 people signed up so that we should be able to have such a minyan. The Barish will commute from Muncie. How long will it take you?
We'll pay the toll.
Hey, Gedalia, you're not muted.
Takes more than that to mute.
Yeah, it takes more than that to mute Gedalia. Anyway, so now the Gemara says, if the Mishnah says Keren, which is goring, and it says Shane, which is eating, why doesn't it say Regel, which is when an animal damages in the course of his walking? So the Gemara says, V'regel my shayre. Why does it leave out the category of regel, and that is when an animal damages in the course of its walking, or with the saddle pack, or the bell around its neck, or with its hair? So the Gemara says, well, that's what it says later on in the Mishnah, is seemingly superfluous words. Kishehizik, when it does damages, chavamazik, it's the responsibility of the owner of the damager to pay, la'asuye regel, to include the category of regel. So the Gemara says, well, it's naye behedya. Why do you have to hint it in a generalization? Why don't you say the category of regel outright? And the Gemara acquiesces, that's a really good question, and therefore it changes its shot. When it says arbavas nezikin and it says shar, that's the damage of regel, when it damages in the course of its walking. And mave is shane, when it damages when it eats or when it has benefit, like if it scratches its back into a wall and knocks down the wall. Vachi kamer loy roya regel. If it only said regel in the Torah, I would only know regel shezekei matzi, because that's very frequent. It walks the whole day. Kareya shein ezekei matzi. That's not as frequent. It only eats when it's hungry. V'loy roya shein. That's something you should have forecasted. Sheyesh hanola ezekei, because it benefits. Kareya regel, when it walks, it's not benefiting. She'ein hanola ezekei. It's not benefiting, right? It's just walking. Says the Gemara, okay, so now it's leaving out Yehuda from Yerushalayim wants to know when the Siyam is. The answer is, Yehuda, we don't know yet. One thing at a time. I just got back on terra firma, so we're going to see. We want to make a gala Siyam, especially since the Siyumim that I experienced in California were unbelievable. And the truth of the matter is, as we welcome in Itchy, the truth of the matter is the Siyum Friday night, where they invited the wives, makes me realize how important it is to invite the wives. I mean, the wives were talking to each other and trading Daf Yomi war stories. You know, like she said, you know, I stayed up because I knew that I had to be up to make sure my husband wakes up for the daf. So I stayed up to make sure to wake up my husband for the daf. Or, you know what? I would have normally asked my husband to go shopping, but I knew he had a daf, so I pushed myself and I went out to do the shopping. And, you know, that really makes a woman feel like she's a partner in this sacrifice, which is known as Daf Yomi.
We're learning according to Shmuel now?
Right, we're learning that
According to Shmuel, it leaves out other.
right, correct. We're going to talk more about Shmuel. Says the Gemara, then according to this, that one is Shane and one is Regel, then the Keren my Shayrek, why does it leave out the damage of goring? Says the Gemara, that generalization at the end of the Mishnah, when it damages, it's the responsibility of the damaging party to pay, la'asuye keren. It comes to include the category of goring. Says the Gemara V'lisnai, you have the same question. Why doesn't it say keren as its own category? Why is it just hinted with a generality at the end? Says the Gemara, b'mu'adan mitchilasan kamayri. We only talk about those that are chayav and nezek shalom in the first time. But goring, the first two times that an animal gores, it only pays a chatzi nezek. It's only the third time that pays a nezek shalom. That it's not talking about. Loy kamayri. So now, as Berish stepped in, v'shmuel my time aloyam karav. Why doesn't he say that Maveh is Odom HaMazik? And if you remember, we said Maveh is from the Lashon of Be'eh, one who seeks to do tshuva. So why doesn't Shmuel learn like Rav? Amalach Isa Kedaitach Odom, if you think Maveh is a human damager, Hakatani Sefer, that's alluded to at the end of the Mishnah, which we didn't learn yet, Sharan Muad, shar that goes the third time is chayiv and nezek shalom. V'shar mazik versus anizik. This is the opinion of Rabbi Tarfon, which we'll learn later on in Masechta, that even a shar that's a first timer, if it saunters into Shalom's property and gores on Shalom's property, it's chayiv and nezek shalom, even if it's a tam. V'shara mazik b'rishus hanizik, and a shar that damages in the domain of the victim. V'ha'adam. So later on it says Adam. So since later on it says Adam, Maveh can't be Adam. Says, well, according to Shmuel, v'lisnei bereisha, why doesn't it say Adam in the beginning of the Mishnah? So the Gemara says, that's no problem. But niskei mam kamairi, the Sechta starts off when your property does damage. But niskei gufay, when you do damage, like kamairi. So the Gemara says, Rav that says Mav is Adam, it says Adam in the Seif of the Mishnah. V'Rav nami hakitani Adam is Seif. So why does it have to say it in the ratio also? Amalach Rav ahu l'michshevei b'hadimu odinu da'asa. It puts it in the Sefer to tell you that Adam mu'ad lo'olam, that Adam is chayiv nezek shalom right away. It says Gemara, my loy hare. It says, Hachi kamer, loy roy yashar. It's not the same thing shar. Shemishalim es hakofer. The din is that if a shar amuad gores a person and kills him, you have to pay kofer. That's a special ransom. You have to. There's a question of whether he has to pay the value of the victim or his value to ransom himself, that he shouldn't get misa b'dei shemayim. Karay Adam, but if a man kills someone, she'ein mishalem es hakofer, he doesn't pay the value, because if he does it b'mezid, he gets executed. And once you get executed, you don't have to pay. That's kamlei b'rab minei. And if he did a b'shageg, he goes into gullus, he goes into exile to the Arei HaMiklat, and he doesn't have to pay. As we welcome in Ilya Shutman for our 29th Zoomer of the evening. Yeah.
The Gemara says that we have Adam Hamazik at the end of the later Mishnah.
You know what? You're interrupting me in the middle of the thought. 1 second. Adam, and if it only says Adam, so it's not the same. Shechayev ba'arba devarim. Adam is chayev besides nezek, besides paying for damages, he has to pay for 4 more things, which is a human, when he does damage, has to pay, besides nezek, he has to pay for ribui, he has to pay for medical, he has to pay for boishes, for embarrassment, he has to pay for tsar, for pain, and he has to pay for sheves, temporary unemployment. Now this doesn't mean that he can't be a baseball player anymore, because that's included in nezek. but he will be able to be a cucumber watchman. But until he gets better, he won't even be able to watch cucumbers. So that's sheves, temporary unemployment. Karaya ashar, but when your axe damages, it doesn't pay for humiliation, it doesn't pay for pain. She'ein by arba advar, hatzara shavish ben. The common denominator is shedar kon lahazik. These items, it's the derech for them to do damage. So the Gemara says, whoa, 1 second. Karen, goring, it's not the derech. It's not usual for a shar to gore. V'chi shar darkei lahazik, says the Gemara, b'muad. It's talking about a three-timer. A three-timer is the derech. Or b'muad darkei lahazik, yes. Kaven de'ayayit, since it got used to doing it, urchehu, it's its normal behavior. Says the Gemara, adam darkei lahazik. Is it normal for a man to do damage? Says the Gemara b'yoshin. Yeah, when he's sleeping. If somebody had his china on the bed, and you go sleep next to it, it's the derech of a person to do damage when he's sleeping. Says the Gemara, yoshin darkei lahazik. When a person's sleeping, it's normal to do damage. Yes, kavan the kayif upashit, since he stretches and straightens out, urcheyu.
But the person was negligent for putting the china on the bed.
Oh, so no. It's talking about where you use somebody's bed. And he had his stuff on it. So you shouldn't have done that. It's very interesting that I mentioned in the shir that Eddie referred to, and I will say that if you want to have a taste of my trip to L.A., I put on YouTube 3 shiurim I gave in the schools. They're all really enjoyable. I'm partial to the shir that I gave to the Beis Yaakov. That was, if you saw how I connected with 300 girls over there, it was really something. It's called, if you want to check it out, it's called Kibbut of Aim and Becoming Easygoing. That's a shir that I gave to the girls in the Beis Yaakov of L.A., but the shir that Eddie watched was a shir of how to respond to the war of 5784, which I gave to the Yeshiva G'dayla of L.A. There I mentioned that somebody asked Rabbi Yerucham Lubavitz, the famous mashgiach, he asked him, how many times do you turn back and forth in your sleep? And he thought, he was a very holy man, and he thought it was an absurd question. He was like annoyed. What kind of a question is this? And then somebody told him, because if a person broke his shoulder or broke his hand or has a wounded foot, he can't turn. And they say that Rabbi Yerucham visibly jumped, and he said, I'm sorry, you're right, that's noisei ba'olam chaverei. You have to know, now he can't turn. How many times is he missing turning? He got visibly upset. He says it's not an absurd question at all. It's very important to be able to feel for someone that's how a person has to feel. I was talking about how one night 2 million people were woken up to go to a shelter in the middle of the night. 2 million people. It's staggering to think about that. It's staggering to think about people that take Ambien, old people with walkers, women that just gave birth and are still bleeding. And they're walking, and they're not just walking, sauntering to a bomb shelter. They're walking down rickety steps to a basement. It's in the middle of the night. A mother waking up 5, 6 children. It's unimaginable. It just, when you say in Ma'av, Ashkivenu Hashem Elokeinu L'Shalom, you can't say it the same way. Says the Gemara, Ushmirasan Alecha, the Mishnah says, and you are, their guardianship is upon you. So it says the Gemara, if you hold that it's talking about Adam HaMazik, what do you mean their guardianship is upon you? You are yourself. You have to protect yourself. Adam shmiras gufay alav. What do you mean shmasin alecha? That doesn't fit into the category. Says Gemara, according to you, Aditani Karna. There's a brisa where Karna says beferish that one of the principles of damage is Adam. And it says the lashon of shmiras and alecha. So what does he mean? Adam shmiras gufa alav. He has to watch himself. It doesn't fit. Ushmiras son alecha, and their guardianship is upon you. Ella kidamale Rabbi Avo l'Tana, like Rabbi Avo amended to the Tana, who quoted Karna, Tani, you have to amend and add another clause, Shmiras and Alecha, v'adam shmiras gufa alav. And a person has to watch himself. Here too, that's what you have to amend. Hachanami, here also, Tani adam shmiras gufa alav. What do you want to ask, Gedalia?
Before we said that we have Adam in the Sefer to tell me that Adam is more la'aylam. We have a Mishnah that says that.
Yeah, no, in Hanami, but you want to put it in that classification. It's a grouping. So it wants to give you a whole grouping. Now, yeah.
This example of the mother brings of a person injures while sleeping. It seems a very strange example. I mean, say people, we fight, we engage in all that kind of...
It's a chiddush. It's telling you how far liability extends. Here you had no intent to do damage. And you might think that while you're sleeping, you can't be held accountable. Kamashma, no. Adam mu'id la'olam. You do damage, it's what we call, it's like we say in a car. If you bang into somebody, bang into him from the front, you're chayav. Adam mu'id la'olam.
Okay, it's not a case of trying to show that people are prone
No,
to cause
no.
damage. It's simply showing the
Right, liability.
liability. I
Yeah.
misunderstood what
Right.
I was trying to...
Correct. Now, as we already turned the page, every time you turn the page, you get closer to finishing. And of course, as Mark will tell you, this is Bava Kama. Bava is a gate. So this is the first gate. There's three gates. Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basa. The first gate, the middle gate, and the last gate. Right? So Mark has his eye on the prize already. We're already turning the page. We're already deep into Masechtas Bava Kama. And I want to point out to you, I said this by the Siyum last night. I'll be honest with you. It brings me back to a story. This happened about 33 years ago, 34 years ago, when we were learning Masechtas Psachim in the Aguda of 14th Avenue. Now, at that time, I had about 250 people by this year. And I had, on the side of the room, I had a veritable smorgasbord of coffees, teas, and cookies. But I mean a smorgasbord. There was every conceivable coffee. Hazelnut, brewed. There was every conceivable coffee and tea. And there was every conceivable cookie. Chocolate, pecan, chewable, not chewable, with white chocolate. There was people wanted to have a chelik in people that were learning Torah. So people would bring the most delicious cookies, chocolate covered. Most delicious. They even had a section for dairy cookies. It was really. So anyway, I remember we were learning Pesachim, and it was the week before Pesach. And we happened to be learning Daf Tes in Pesachim that says what happens if you put out 10 pieces for night and you only find 9. And we're learning that Gemara, and while we were learning the Gemara, people were sitting and eating their cookies over the Gemara. And I remember I gave a clap on the stender. I said, Rabbi, tell me, are we loymid al manas lasis? are we learning in order to do? You're eating on the Gemara that you're going to use on Chalamoid Pesach. And you're eating with abandoned cookies on top of the Gemara, and you're learning about what happens if you put out 10 and you find 9. Our learning has to be Lamaisa. Learning these Gemaras, learning torts, has to make us more sensitive. It's like Saba said when he came in by Mincha today. He said to me, we learned bar. A person takes a shopping cart and he leaves it in the middle of the parking lot. It rolls and it hits somebody's car. Now, by the way, that very well might not be bar. Right, exactly. Very good, Gedalia. That probably would be Eish, because it is linked in to a Ruach Metzuya. The wind has to take. Right. But even, what makes no difference? Bar, Eish. Right? But it means that you have to have a mindset. You can't damage people. And when a person drives in fairways and hangs in the middle of the night and wakes up people, that's being a mazik. And when you learn these Gemaras, it has to give you a sensitivity. It's not funny, but we're learning about Yoshin. So, I'm a rabbi. I sleep with my phone. I said, I get calls in the middle of the night. So I sleep with my phone. One time, I left my phone on top of the blanket, which I never do. I don't know how I was involved in something else. I pick up the blanket and the phone flew and it hit my wife. Baruch Hashem, she was all right. But you have to realize, you're a mazik. You're a mazik. Says Gemara, Maskvar Mari. I don't know, why am I talking about myself with my wife when we have Marshall here? Why?
Catch my last chat, you'll see.
I have to tell you, Marshall, your predecessor, Barry, gets a very big mazel tov. This week he became, for the first time, a great-grandfather.
Mazel tov.
Yeah.
I like your idea. I never would have thought of hitting my wife with a cell phone. Thank you.
Yeah. You're getting the wrong idea, Marshall.
Oh, I got it straight. I got it.
Where did I pick him up? Anyway,
Oops.
Anyway, it's interesting because the siyum that I was by this wonderful family in Hancock Park, Yonatan and Chani Weiss. I mean, you talk about a power Daf Yomi couple. She made this siyum for 80 people. She set up tables. She even got heaters outside in case it was cold. It was unbelievable what she did. See, he told me that in the tkufa that he listened to me, he heard about Barry, and he always wanted to meet this character Barry. And he went to a hotel for Pesach, and Barry was there, and he met this guy. He was very interesting. They started talking. He said, "Where do you live?" So he says, "Staten Island." So he said, "What's your name?" He said, "Barry Cement." "Barry from Staten Island? Where do you daven?" "By Rabbi Weiss." "Are you that Barry?" Are you that Barry? He says, "Yup, I'm that Barry." Told me he was so excited to meet Barry. But anyway, we got to get him back, Marshall. Got to get him back.
I'm trying, but he should be selling T-shirts. He can make a good living doing that.
Yeah,
I am that Barry T-shirt. I am that Barry.
Yeah,
hat.
he's struggling. You see, Ruvain Pollack is from a different generation. He remembers Shlomo Yol. Remember Shlomo Yol and the Rakut Crumply?
He's going for eye surgery on Rosh Chodesh.
Who? Shlomo Yol?
Barry.
Oh, Barry, I know. Anyway, so now asks Gemara as a new question. We said Mava is either Adam or it's Shein. Maybe it's Mayim. So you'll say, what kind of damage could you do with water? So Gemara, the Rishonim say you could let your wastewater into the public domain, and it could cause damage. So the Gemara says, well, if it causes damage when you open up the floodgate, so that's koichayu, that's your force, that's Adam. If it's lying there in the Rosh Hashanah, then it's bar. So Taisva says that there's an interesting halacha with bar. We're going to learn, these are details that we're going to learn throughout the Masechta. But there's a din in bar that it says that you're not chayiv for utensils that fall in a bar. Kalim apotter in bar. Maybe this is coming to say that if you soil somebody's clothing, here you're chayiv. And that would be the inclusion of mine. That's how Taisus learns. So says the Gemara, maybe it's water damage. And how do we know that Mava means water? Kidduchsiv, quoting a pasuk, Kikdayach eish amasim, like fire burns through and melts. Mayim tiva eish, water causes fire to bubble. So you see, tiva refers to water. Says in Ramiksiv mayim nivu, that would mean water causes the fire to bubble. Tiva eish ksiv, the fire causes the water to bubble. So tiva refers to fire. So says the Gemara, okay, so maybe Mava is fire. Maskler observed be'ema Mava zeh eish. The chiksiv tiva be'eish of the ksiv. You just said that it means that fire causes water to bubble. Says the Gemara, well, but it already says fire in the Mishnah. Ihachi, if so, my hamave v'hever. It already says hever, that's fire. V'chitema perusha kamafarish, it's saying, what's mave, hever? That can't be, because the Mishnah says 4. This would make it 3. It says, v'chitema perusha kamafarish, ihachi arbosh, shloishav, it's only 3. V'chitema tonash shardi is peitarte. It says shor that has 2 classes. It has shein and regel, or karen. Ihachi loy zev v'zeh sheyesh ben ruach chayim. If Mava is referring to Eish and it says that it has Ruach Hayim, animation, fire doesn't have animation. Eish, my Ruach Hayim is it doesn't have animation. It doesn't have a spirit of life. V'su mai, it says Kahari or Eish. So it means that Mava is not Eish. So Mava is not Eish. Mava is either Adam or Shein. Tani Rav Oshia. Is that my meaning? Correct. Tani Rav Oshia. Now we're going to take the word Arba Avos Nezikin and broaden it and learn other categories. We're going to learn a lot of different details in this Masechta. Broaden our knowledge. I was talking to Rich earlier that, of course, whatever we learn now is only prefatory. It gives us the key to Yeshiva Shomala, where we're going to be allowed to come in and enjoy it for eternity. Now, of course, when we enjoy it for eternity, we're going to enjoy it much more. In this world, we have a Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara fights that this should be a chore. But let's not forget, Torah in essence is the sweetest thing. Umesukim midvash v'noifes sufim. It's sweeter than honey and the sweetest honeycombs. Now, if you were Zeicha, then you would see that the great tzaddikim, they would learn with the most incredible joy. You watch Rav Elyashiv learn. He finished the Yom Kippur at the age of 100. He ate a fleishcha meal after Yom Kippur. Then he sat down to learn after Yom Kippur. They brought him a coffee with milk. And he turned and he said, Besari, and fleishchas. And they said, Zayda, it's already 6 hours after Yom Kippur. After Yom Kippur, at the age of 100. I had the schia. I'm friendly with the Skolya Rebbe. His father, Saba, you remember his father, Baruch Rabinowitz? Yeah, so his father was a Talmud. Right, his father was a Talmud of mine. And his father, the Heilige Frierdiker Skolya Rebbe, who was a world-class Gadol Hadar, this Baruch Rabinowitz would tell me about his father, that his father would tell him like 1 a.m, he would tell him with such a smile, the Nach is still young, the night is still early. The Skolya Rebbe Zayda, one of the things that he did was Chai Prokim Mishnayos every day. 18 Prokim. Gedalia said that when he retires, he's going to think about that. Can you imagine Chai Prokim? Chai Prokim every day. That's like doing almost the whole Masechta Shabbos in one day. That's nothing. It's like doing the whole Yavamas and most of Ksuvas in one day. Mishnayos. And that cheshbon is, if you do Chai Prokim and Mishnayos every day, you finish in a month.
I went to Monday, spent a couple of weeks with your mother.
Right.
I was on vacation. Why have the davening nets?
Right.
I heard the airship was in Tailstone.
Yeah.
The davens on nets, so I wanted to come together with them. And go to America. You wouldn't believe he's a god. Acts like a plain person.
And that's like 200 Mishnayos a day,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the people that learn Chok learn a parak a day, which is also not so easy.
I think you finish Shas in a year, I think you could do it.
It's not full Shas, but almost Shas. The Chok doesn't learn all of Shas, but it's most of Shas. Yeah.
I sit over there for many years.
Yeah. 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 What? I don't know if it's half. It's more than half.
There's another safe that someone put on
To finish it.
to finish.
Yeah. Okay, as we welcome in Mo Kushner, just getting underway over here. It's not getting underway. I don't want to scare you. We're almost finished. But Mo is here. We should start from the beginning. Mo, it's really great to have you.
Thank you very much.
I believe that Mo is the senior member of our DAF. Right? Right. Marshall is not that old. Mo, you're going to be 97, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Kein Yirbu. Kein Yirbu. Kein Yirbu. That makes Saba look like a baby. It's Hashem. Yeah. Okay. So now, Tana Rav Oishia, Shloisha Eser Avos Nezikin. He goes from 4 to 13. What a bump. You know why? Because he counts the 4 different types of shomer. There's a shomer chinam, there's the unpaid watchman, the shoyel, somebody borrows something, noisei sacher, the paid watchman, and a soicher. Soicher is somebody that leases something. So now why are they called damagers? The answer is because they have liabilities. The Shomer Chinam, if let's say I give something to Rich, and I said, Rich, I'm going away. Can I leave my gold watch by you? I'm going to have a cleaning lady come in the house. I don't feel safe. So he says, sure. So he's an unpaid watchman. He has liability if he's negligent. That means if he takes it and he leaves it outside on the, in front of the house, and somebody takes it, he's high. If he's a paid watchman, that means I say, look, I need you to watch my jewelry, and I'll pay you for the weekend, I'll pay you $300. So then he's chayiv if it gets lost or stolen. But he's not chayiv for an oinus. But if he borrows my gold watch because he's going to a meeting and he wants to make a good impression, then he's chayiv even for an oinus. Now a soicher, one who leases, that's a machlokes if he has a din of a shomer chinam or a shomer sacher. Then we also include in this category the 5 payments of damage, which is nezik, the damage that means if you let's say cut off somebody's arm, chas v'shalom, and now he can't pitch for the New York Yankees, so you have to pay for the loss of his value. Tsar, you have to pay for the pain. Ripa, you have to pay the doctor bills. Shevis, you have to pay for unemployment. He's going to become a clerk in Walmart, but until he gets better, he can't even be a clerk in Walmart. Obaishis, and for his humiliation. V'arbod masnisin, and the 4 in our Mishnah, right? The shar, the bor, the hever, the fire, and Adam, Hatalaisa, that's 13. Says the Gemara, Tanadi done my time aloi tani hani. Why doesn't our Tana say these other 9? So Bishlam Shmuel, who says that Mav is Shane, so it doesn't say it because Beniske Mammon Kamari, it's only talking about the damage of your property. Beniske Gufay, but the damage of your body, like Kamari. Ela Rav listening, but according to Rav, it should count it. So it says, Rav says it says Adam, and he embraces in Adam all of these things. Tana Adam, v'kol milei Adam. He says, Rabbi Nami hatani le Adam. One of the 4 is Adam. Why does it repeat all of these things? Says Trey Gavne Adam. There's 2 types of Adam Amazik. Tana Adam the Azik Adam, a human that damages a human. The Tana Adam the Azik Shar, Adam that damages property. When you damage property, you don't pay Chamisha Dvar. So the Gemara says, "Ihachi shar nami lisnei trei gavnei shar." It should say 2 types of shar. Lisnei shar da'azik shar, shar that damages a shar. But lisnei shar da'azik adam. Says the Gemara, it only makes 2 categories where it makes a difference. Hi, Mike. Bishlam adam da'azik shar. Nezik udim shalmi only pays for damage. Adam da'azik adam, he pays for the 5 things. Mishal ma'abed dvarim pays damage, and also tzar ripu shevis and baishas. Elashar mali shar da'azik shar mali shar da'azik adam. Whether the shar damages a person or damages an animal, aidi nezik udim mishal. Says Gemara, but it doesn't only talk about cases of a human damaging a human. It also talks about a case of damaging property. Because when Rich is shomer chinam and he's not careful with my watch, it's property that it's damaging. The adam da'azik sharu, he's damaging a property, and yet v'ketani. Says Tani hazeka to be a daim. It says express damage, like punching somebody in the nose. V'ketani hazeka or an animal in the nose. V'ketani hazeka memela, where you just didn't watch it, which is indirect. So now comes along Reb Chia and says 13. That's for wimps. I'm going to give you 24. Tani Reb Chia Esrim V'Arba Avos Nezikin. 24. First of all, there's Tashlumei Kefil. What's Tashlumei Kefil? When you rob somebody in stealth and they catch you, you have to pay a double portion. V'Tashlumei Arba V'Chamisha. Now this is specialized. If I steal, let's pick somebody out of the hat. I steal from Marshall a sheep, and I either sell it to Michal or I slaughter it. There's a special din in the Torah that I have to pay 4 times. If I steal from Marshall an ox and I sell it or I slaughter, I have to pay 5 times. V'ganev. Ganav over here means if I steal but I admit, so I only pay the principal. Or gazlan, if I openly force it out of his hands, will you never pay kefil. The Eidim Zaymimin, what's Eidim Zaymimin? Eidim Zaymimin is where, let's pick somebody who would do this. Marshall. If Marshall and Mark, where did Mark run? Guess he had to go. But if Marshall and Mark testify that Shelley stole something from Ruvain in Marine Park, here's Mark, and that's what Marshall and Mark testified, that Shelley stole something from Ruvain yesterday in Marine Park. And then Rebellia Yafi and Shimon Deer come and say, how could you say that? You were with us on a cruise to Acapulco yesterday. So they have a din of Eidim Zaymimin, and they have to pay what they wanted Shelley to have to pay. That's called Eidim Zaymimin. V'ainis, a rapist, v'mafata, a seducer, u'maitzi shemra, somebody maligns his kala, that she wasn't a virgin. V'amatame, if you matame somebody's truma or kachim, v'amadame, you mix truma into somebody's chulin, thereby causing that he can't eat it, that he has to sell it cheaply to a kaye. V'amanasach, you pour somebody's wine out to idolatry, thereby causing it aser. So we have these 11, v'hani tleiser, and the 13 of Rabbi Yishia Esem Rabbah. Says Rabbi Yishia, my time loitani hani. Why doesn't it say these cases? So he says, b'mamayna kamairi. It's only talking about paying that which is a compensation, not a penalty. B'knasa loy kamairi, kefil, dalad v'hei, the payment for rape, seduction, those are all penalties. Says Gemara, Ganav v'Gazlan, a Ganav who admits, and a Gazlan who pays just the principle of the Mamayna who listening. Says Gemara, well, Hakatani le'Shem Rechinam v'Ashayel. Now, part of the responsibility of Hashem Rechinam is if Rich misappropriates my watch, and he says, I never gave it to him when I come to get it back. So he's a robber. So Shem Rechinam has in it embedded the case of a robber. Says Gemara Rabbi Chia Nami Hatanu le'Shem Rechinam v'Ashayil. So why does it have to say also a robber? Says Gemara Tani Mamayna de'asal yadei be'teira. It says the case of a Shem Rechinam where the watch came to Rich better because I gave it to him to watch it for me. V'ktani mamayna d'asal yadei be'yisura, and says a case of a robber where it came to his hand be'isur. Tomorrow we're going to go on and explain about Eidim Zaymimin. By the way, there will be some days where the daf will go quicker, and some days where it will go slower. We're just getting our feet wet over here in new terrain. Be patient. You'll get used to the new terrain as we go more and more in it. We're going to learn the Mishnah Yomis now. Again, I want to encourage people to talk to other people to come to the shir. Also, please consider we need you for 7.25 million here in Fairways, which I want to try to start for next Monday. So please let me know if it's possible for you. And check out YouTube. Remember to subscribe. Thank you for joining us, and we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis.